Um, Going back to DeFi, is Aave kind of the leader in that space right now as far as DeFi protocols go? Um, what are your favorite DeFi protocols? I'm just curious. And also related to Ethereum again, how do you see the value accrual? Like, obviously these protocols are living on Ethereum, so to speak. Where does the value accrue? Like if the protocol benefit Ethereum relative to that protocol or application that's sort of built on Ethereum, like what would you rather own?
That's a great question. And I think that's a really important point to hit on, that by owning Ether, you're indexing the space of DeFi and all the layer 2 protocols and projects built on top of it. So think about buying land in Manhattan and people are then building skyscrapers on top of it. The more buildings and skyscrapers that are built on top of your land, the more people that demand that land, the more value. So by buying Ethereum, you are effectively buying land on this island. And you could also invest and or build a skyscraper, but that sort of becomes more of like picking the right project, like Aave, which is a leader in the lending space. I think there's a couple different, there's decentralized exchanges, DEXs. I think Uniswap is one of the leaders there. You've got Nexus Mutual, which is building insurance coverage, starting with smart contracts insurance coverage, but they're really trying to build a global underwriting engine for insurance contracts. And it's a community, and you vote on the types of risks you want to insure. And it's almost like crowdsourced underwriting. It's super fascinating. So there's like this insurance vertical, there's a decentralized exchange vertical, there's lending and borrowing verticals, and a few others that I'm going to miss here. But the bottom line is, like, for most people, buying Ether, you index the space, and it's a great way to get exposure and participate in the network. Unless you're close to the projects or really in the weeds and doing the work, it's probably too hard for the majority of people to try and determine whether they should invest in Yearn Finance or Aave or Compound or what have you. Buying Ether gets you really most of the way there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Tyler, you've used this analogy before. Just own the racetrack and don't worry so much about who wins the race. Who wins the race.
Yeah, like buy a piece of the internet. Don't try and pick don't try and pick Amazon over pets.com or whatever. Just
right.
This is a good analogy actually to go back to. Like, there was no way to buy a piece of the original internet. The best way you could do that, you couldn't buy a piece of the protocols like TCP/IP. The closest thing you could do is basically domain squat, buy like a 3-letter word or a 4-letter word and hope to flip it to a company like, I don't know, wish.com or something like that. But you actually can now do that with Bitcoin or Ether. You can buy a piece of the protocol. Like, buying Bitcoin or buying Ether is like the index. It's like buying a piece of the racetrack and not worrying about like the winning horse or the winning project, whether it's Aave or Compound or Yearn Finance, which are incredible projects. But sort of starting there, like if you're a beginner, obviously education is the first step, but kind of coming in on the base layer, like Cameron was saying, the land, as opposed to trying to pick like which skyscraper or which condo will be like more valuable than the other one. Like, just go down to the soil, right? Go to the base layer, get some land on Manhattan. Manhattan's not growing bigger or some, fixed supply. All of that activity that other people are doing and that risk taking actually makes your land like more valuable without doing anything on that land, because it's it's inside this ecosystem that's getting more exciting.
Yeah.
And so I just think I think it's important. It's really interesting to play. And once you get like bitten by the crypto bug, you're going to play all the different levels of the stack. But I think it's important to like start like smart and where it makes the most sense. And that's with like Bitcoin and Bitcoin, Ether and Ethereum. And then you can go into those other protocols when you build more.
Yeah, one of my good friends who runs a large crypto exchange actually, he was like he's like, if Bitcoin is like Central Park, he's like Ethereum is Manhattan, or all of Manhattan. And maybe that gets to sort of the
That's really clever. I like that. Yeah.
yeah. But regarding Ethereum itself, and you guys have significant exposure to Ethereum. I don't know how much you've talked about that publicly, but and same with me. It's obviously much smaller, but it's an important part of my portfolio. The risks that I see to Ethereum are just competing blockchains that are trying to do the same thing, that are somehow tweaking the consensus algorithm to be more efficient and support higher transaction speeds and throughput. And I think in general, like, because Ethereum has sort of first mover advantage when it comes to smart contract technology, if something else comes along that's better, it probably would need to be 10 times as good as Ethereum, maybe even more so. What do you guys see as the threats to Ethereum? I mean, is it Solana? Is it Cardano? Are any of these really in the same? Do any of them really have potential to put a serious dent in Ethereum's current pole position as it relates to being an application-based layer?
Well, you're absolutely right. Like, usually in technology circles, it's the belief is that when a product is very sticky and has a lot of like product market fit, a lot of users and momentum, something has to be like 10x better for people to switch. Ethereum has a huge first mover advantage. It's on every major exchange. When people build stablecoins, like Gemini's built the Gemini dollar stablecoin, you start building it on Ethereum. There's so much building that's been happening there that's where you want to go, because that's where eyeballs are. The thing that has to happen though is scalability and throughput. Its ability to process like many transactions cheaply. So right now, because that migration, so Ethereum 2.0 or Ethereum 2 is promises to solve this, and that migration is happening. But right now, there can be so much excitement that if things get hot, or Ethereum can fall victim to the weight of its own success. So transaction prices go through the roof when there's a lot of activity and people are moving through different projects. So if it doesn't scale or make that migration successfully, which I do believe it will, then that could be a problem.
And just to build on that, Tyler, to take like the other side of Ethereum, it's sort of theirs to lose. If you look at the operating space, there are a few major operating systems around the world. You've got OS, iOS, Android, Linux, Windows. So it's not just sort of one operating system. There are network effects for sure, but we do see a couple of really big systems, at least in computing. And so it is possible that some newer layer one protocol says, hey, we're going to start at proof of stake. We're going to make a better smart contract language. It's easier to program, more secure. I think Tezos is an example of a project that launched with these things from day one. It hasn't had the same uptake, at least yet, as Ethereum. Maybe Solana's up there as well. I'm not as familiar with that project, but I think that there's going to be opportunities for other people to enter the race with potentially a 10x better project. But I think in my mind, it's a question between Ether winning all or winning a very, very big chunk of an enormous pie. I think it's in either case, it's an incredible long-term hold. The question is how incredible, what varying degree of incredible.
So for an exchange, right? It's not trivial for an exchange like Gemini or Coinbase to list a new asset, right? So if a new blockchain wants to come along and compete with Ethereum, and there are ones out there, if it was like as trivial as like a day of engineering for a few engineers to support it in your wallets to list it, right, that would be important. If the programming language, apparently like Ethereum's programming language Solidity, requires a little bit of extra knowledge, right? So if the ability to program language was much easier for smart contracts, or just was super like agnostic, so that you could quickly take the Gemini dollar that was on Ethereum and put it somewhere else, or put it onto another chain, that would be important.